Hey, it's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
And I'm Jimmy Starnes. Am I supposed to say I'm Jimmy Starnes? I thought people knew already. Like that when famous people are on, I always just assume they knew ahead of time, like that I would be on. But
No, I think Rick froze there for a second, but he's back.
Well, okay. I think what we have to do is there's a form you have to fill out with money involved, and when you send that in, you can say I'm the third person, the third banana, or whatever. Jimmy Starnes here, who is a life coach and a great friend of ours. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing good today. If you ask me that 2 hours from now, I may change my answer. But as of right now, I'm actually doing great. Thank you guys for having me on.
Hey, thanks for showing off all the books you've read there in the back. I'm trying to read the titles there from the spine of them, the back of them, I guess.
Wow, look at that. They keep going. Wow. Yeah. We like to ask people if they've actually read all those. Have you read all those, or is it just?
So here's how you know if I read it.
Okay.
If there is a J, let me find one that I've actually read. Right. So if there's a J on the top, then yes. So that's my buddy Jeff Schinneberger's book, more or less.
Yeah.
J. If not, then I have them and there they are. Right. So,
they look pretty.
Yeah.
You know, isn't it against the law to write on those things, like pulling the tag off the mattress?
Yeah. I mean, probably. That's why I keep them in this safe place that I'm in, inside the house that nobody has access to.
I didn't realize Jimmy was that funny, but he's very, very funny today. Maybe he's on medication like me. I don't know. Jimmy Starnes here, life coach. Jimmy, we wanted to check in with you, first of all, to see if everybody's healthy. I know before we were live, we talked about your family's all there, like Dan's and myself. 5 weeks for us, we've been socially isolated.
Yeah.
We finally got the hang of it, I think, about 3 weeks ago, maybe. But anyway, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. So to answer your question, that's a great question. My wife and daughter actually got tested on Monday. So we think that we have had the virus run through the house.
Oh, wow.
And me and my son Caleb are asymptomatic, very, very little symptoms. But my wife and daughter have had the fatigue and the tiredness and the respiratory. And amazingly enough, and no offense to those who have put these tests out there, but they both came back negative. We don't know if that's real. I mean, we don't even know, right? But they've got all the symptoms. Hopefully there'll be mild cases. But yeah, we think that we have actually experienced the COVID-19 in the house.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is there's so many unknowns about this. I mean, it came up out of nowhere, and nobody knows. Like every day, the information changes on what you should do or shouldn't do, right. And whether the testing is working or not. Who knows?
Yeah, and we've done all the things, right? I mean, it's amazing. Even when you go to the grocery store, we put our groceries in quarantine for 3 days, before we move them into the pantry and things like that, and the funny stuff, right? But it's serious. But what makes me really nervous is those who are at high risk, right? So I love the idea of what we're doing, although it'll drive us crazy a little bit, but at the same time, it's so crazy how after even doing all those things to prevent it, that we still, two of the healthiest people I know, are kind of struggling through it. And we're good in the sense of, I think we're going to absolutely survive it and beat it. It's just hard just because of the stresses of it and not knowing and not being able to go to the doctor and things like that.
We're so sorry. We'll continue to pray for those guys, your entire family.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing that. That's, for you to share that for everybody to hear just about your experiences is really brave and courageous, and we appreciate that. That ministers to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
So you're working at home and you're a life coach, folks. Usually, now, do you usually do stuff in the office, or you usually go out, don't you?
That's another great point. So our business is down about 80 to 90%.
Whoa!
Wow.
So, and it'll come back. It'll be fine. But yeah, and I do a lot of Zoom and FaceTime calls with clients that are on the West Coast or Northeast or even Birmingham, Alabama. But yeah, typically it's retreats where I'm with Chick-fil-A or plywood people or people like that. And you've got to, all go together somewhere, and there's a bunch of people in the room, and those have all been postponed or canceled. And then life planning and executive coaching, if people are flying into town or something, because a life plan really is kind of an in-person experience. It's an intensive. And so those are down. And then just the other stuff is good, except for, I mean, when you think about disposable income right now, I think a lot of people are being just very careful, which is so fair. It's very, very fair. I've had a lot of great conversations. I'm just not charging, we're not having clients in as we usually would. So man, it has affected us in a really hard way financially. But at the same time, it's kind of one of those things where if you look at it from a positive or an optimistic viewpoint, it also gives me time to just pause and rest and, reboot and rethink, what we want the business to look like going forward. But yeah, it's definitely taken a toll, and I'm ready to see people again in person.
Yes, we're talking with Jimmy Starnes, and we were talking with Jimmy before we started. And Jimmy, you said it has kind of affected you emotionally, spiritually, and you had to take a couple of weeks off. Tell us how it's affected you just emotionally in your head.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a guy that thrives on just people and progress and wins and things like that. And I told you guys just very, candidly, I mean, yes, emotionally, physically, spiritually, those first 2 weeks were very hard times for me. They were dark times. I think there are times that you kind of have to sit and really just reevaluate what you think about everything, right? And
right.
Cry and, panic a little bit and have anxiety. But at the same time, I'm also talking to friends and clients throughout that time all the time. And I just had to take a break at a point, because I kind of got to the point where it was like, hey, if I continue at this level, I mean, I'll break down myself. Right. So
right.
I think those first 2 weeks were hard, really hard. And I think it's starting to improve and get better. But I had to kind of forge my own path and come up with a plan that worked for me, not what everybody else was thinking that I would do. Right. So
yeah, that's a great point.
I think that was the biggest challenge. Sure. Absolutely.
Jimmy Starnes, you can go to jimmystarnes.com and find out more about Jimmy. We love Jimmy and love having him on the show. And we're sorry that you're having to go through those challenges. It sounds to me like that you're on the other side of it and getting there. I mean, we all, sometimes just kind of go back and go, uh-oh, it's happening again. But we know that you're strong in the Lord and the power of his might. What are you saying to the folks that you are able to speak into over their lives? What are you saying to them now after you've gone through that dark time?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of that first thing I always do is just kind of listen and understand what they're going through, what they're experiencing, and that traumatic effect, first of all. And then I'm just trying to remind people of truth, right? So that's the biggest challenge that I had in the first 2 weeks, is just forgetting what's really true, right? And so I have a great therapist that I go to, and he reminded me of just some ideas just around this concept that, hey, look, let's be honest, this is temporary. So if we look at what is going to happen in the world, we're gonna come out of this. Hold on, it's not permanent. And that was a big lie that I was believing. And then I think it's like we got to focus on what's rational and logical. I think that's a big one. We got to deal with our emotions, but we don't want to let our emotions kind of win the day, because when emotions take over, rational and logical things go out the window. And then I think we just talked about the faith component. I think is the biggest thing, is just trusting that God has not abandoned us. He hasn't left the throne. He is not absent. He cares very deeply for us, and that he is still a good father in these times, and they're hard, right? And just,
yeah.
So I think it's that concept of, I want everyone to know that how they deal with this should be customized. It should be specific to them, not what someone tells them to do, but what they really need to do to make it out better on the other side. Right. And then you just kind of walk through, what does that look like? What are the rhythms? What's the things that we need to let go of, things that we need to move on to, things that we need to deal with, and then things that we want to look forward to, things that are positive and optimistic about the future. I think are very important. And so, yeah, to me, it's really just slowing everything down, kind of getting a perspective around it, and then looking at what's what does our hopeful future look like now that we're kind of focused on truth?
Yeah.
That is so good, Jimmy. Listen, we'd love to talk to you in a couple of weeks. We got to go to a break. Check out Jimmy's website, jimmystarnes.com. He's on Facebook as well. And after this stint at home, social isolation, he'll be doing stand-up. And Dan and I will be introducing him because he's a
I
very
love it. I love it.
And there will
Thank
be
you guys.
J's
Thank
on
you
every
guys
one of
so
those
much.
books there, right? There'll
Yes,
be J's
that's
on
right.
every one. Yes.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Jimmy, we got to go to break. We love you, pal. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, it is Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
We'll be back.